Hello, this is Michael Brand from Tinternet, courtesy of Tinted. Today I'm going to show you how to tint a rear window that's got a spoiler on. Now, you're going to find this a lot. You're going to come into a car, and obviously when you want to put the tint on the outside of the glass to cut it to the shape and heat shrink it, sometimes there's going to be a spoiler in the way. Now, spoilers usually are quite easy to remove, so if you know how to do that, then skip this and take it off. The reason I wouldn't want to remove this is because on this car here, although it's not impossible to take this off, you've got to take all this trims off. You've also got to take this, the trim goes around the side here, and it's very, very difficult to put back in. It doesn't quite want to go in as neat as it was before you took it off. So it's a lot easier to work around this spoiler than it is to take it off. Of course, if it is a nice easy spoiler and you open it up and it's just 3 bolts and off it comes, take it off, it'll save you loads of time. If not, you have to work around it. I'm going to show you how. So this is an A-class, very, very common. It's quite a tricky back window to deal with when it has a spoiler on. Like I said just a minute ago, if we were to take the spoiler off, it would be the world's easiest back window, but it's not. So the first thing that I want to do before I start this job is to check how much allowance we have, how much tolerance we have at that top. So if I come underneath and have a look, I can just about see that dot matrix, which is good. Now, a time when when you definitely have to take this off is if you look underneath and that spoiler is set over the top of the dot matrix on the outside, then we have no indication on where to cut it. So we're going to have to take the spoiler off. But in this case, because we can see the dots, this is how we do it. So from start to finish, let's go. I'm going to first spray this window up just to get rid of any loose contaminants on the outside of the glass, so that when we go to tint it, we won't be putting our window film on dirt. Now, I don't want to spray this up too much because the way we like to heat shrink is a dry shrink, and we put talcum powder on, and this talcum powder only works when this window is bone dry. So I just put a tiny little bit of solution over the top to get rid of that dirt, because I want it to be dry. Now, just before I start doing this, just to give it the odd minute for it to dry, now it's going to clean up on the outside, the inside, so I'm sorry. Now, when we clean this on the inside, before I put talc on it, before I spray it up, I'm going to inspect this window and making sure that there's no old sticker residue or any sort of grease, any damn baby on board, sort of saliva rings that gets put on the glass, anything like that. And there is something just there that I have noticed. I'm not too sure what it is. So what I'm going to do is, just before I start cleaning, I'm going to get a bit of tissue and a bit of tar and glue remover. I'm just going to spray a tiny little bit, and I'm just going to wipe that off, because the way my cleaning process works with just a sponge, the sponge alone would not get rid of that, and neither is this. It tends to tell me that it's something else. And it's gone, almost. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this up. And before I go any further, I'm going to take off this parcel shelf. And I could take it out of the car completely, but every now and then, sometimes when you're in a hurry, you forget to put it back in. You get half an hour down the road and you think, oh no, there's a parcel shelf there from the last car. So I put it upside down, so if it does drip on it, it's going to drip on the underneath side and not on the top. Right now, I get my sponge, skip all of this if you know how to clean glass already, and I'm going to spray the scouring side of a non-scratch sponge. I'm working with the lines first, going side to side, digging my fingers through the sponge to put pressure against the scouring side. I'm going to clean this up, down the pillars, underneath them trims, side to side first off, then left and right. Give it a good scrub on that part that I wasn't quite happy with earlier. And then I'm going to put my sponge there for later. Now I'm ready to squeegee out this water. And remember, like I always say, if it's still wet, it's still dirty. You get all that water, holding all that dirt in, all the way to the side, having a nice dry finish. Now I'm going to get my conqueror tool, which is designed to go behind the trims, and I'm going to make sure that any leftover droplets that could have dirt inside is nice and gone. Now I'm happy that that window is dry. I'm going to put it down. Outside my window is undoubtedly dry too, and it's time to start with talcum powder. I'm going to get my talcum powder, bit of a sprinkle on the tissue, and I'm going to rub it all around the glass. Not too much talc, probably about a teaspoon's worth, making sure that I definitely get it underneath that spoiler also. And there we have it. Now sometimes this job can be a process of elimination, which you're about to see. Making sure it's nice and even all the way around the glass. And then to get rid of any excess dust, I'm going to give it a blow. And now I'm ready for my H pattern. And my H pattern, nice wet ball, going down the vertical sides first to make sure that any drips just go straight from top to bottom and don't get the part of my glass wet that I don't want it to. That's that one there. That's that one there. Give it a quick squeeze, so I'm definitely not going to have any drips in the middle. And then I'll do a centre one as well. So we have our side lockdowns and our centre lockdown. Excellent. I get my knife, this wipe it down for a second. I get my tint and put it over the top of the spoiler. Not massively so. The more excess we have at the top, the harder it's going to be to cut. But obviously, because this window is curved, we do need to make sure that this excess at the top definitely covers the dot matrix. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this film out. I'm not going to quite lock it down yet because it might have to move, but I'm going to flatten it out so the film is nice and flat and can't quite move. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this excess here. I'm going to lift it without creasing it. Nice and gently folding it in. With my fingers here, I'm going to jab it as far as I can. Now that can move the second I did it. So I'm going to lock down that centre so it doesn't happen again. Lock it down. Let's try that again, shall we? I'm going to jab as far as I can inwards, just in the centre. And then once I do, I'm going to get my knife and I'm going to try and get the film where the spoiler meets the glass. I'm going to dig it in, and then as I cut along that, I'm going to, with my upper part of my hand here, as I cut, my finger is going to press the material in before my knife gets there, like so. Sticking it in, pressing the material to the spoiler before it gets cut. Making sure that you don't scratch the spoiler, obviously. Now that's one side. I'm going to go back into the centre. And now with my hand, I'm going to press it to the spoiler. Pull like so. Now, I'm going to rip away these edges and I'm going to have a look at my excess, the part that I'm just about to discard, and I'm going to see how ropey a cut that was, because I might need to neaten that up. And when I started to cut that, I could feel that my knife was very blunt. And look at the state of that. That is absolutely awful. So, because of it, and like I say, this one can be a bit tricky. I'm going to look underneath and see how bad it was. Now it's short down there, it is fine in the middle, and it looks as though it is fine there. You can't see very well, we will open it up, and we will have a look at the edge of the tint on the inside compared to the ceramic dots. It looks pretty good from this side all the way over to here, where it is really, really bad. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up this film, and I'm going to put it on this glass here, and I'm going to neaten that line up. How do we know how to do that? Because when we look at the orange lines here, the orange lines on this back window, we're going to look and see how consistent they are to the dot matrix at the top, and also how consistent they are to the shape of the spoiler. And because they are, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my tint on here. I'm going to open it up and turn on a light. And what I'm trying to achieve here is I'm trying to cut the edge of my film with the same shape as one of these orange lines. And it would look something like this. Making sure you can see that orange line through the film. Sometimes this is not necessary if the spoiler is less severe, because that first initial cut will be good enough. But because there is such a deep pocket between the spoiler and the glass, that made my knife do a very messy job of it. So I'm sure, as you can see now, that shape is a lot better than before. I'm going to pick it back up and wedge it to the spoiler, making sure that we are covered. And again, before I commit myself here, I'm going to open it up and see what the gap is like. And it is pretty good there. Now I'm ready to begin. Shut that down. Lock down my tint, just through the centre to start with, because for example, we do not want to be carding over something like that, because we're just going to crease the material. Now I'm going to make a small incision directly above the wiper, and only where the wiper begins, right at the very bottom, because I do want a little bit of play. And I'm going to tear away. Just like so. Save that for something later on maybe, or put it in the bin when we're finished, whichever we prefer. Now I'm going to lift my wiper up, so this part of the material can get flat. I'm going to put it underneath. Just like that. Now we are able to light so we can see the whole window, and we're going to oversized cut this bit of material. A nice fresh blade again. I like to open up the tailgate so we invite the light of the room in. We can see so much more of the dots than we could earlier. Making it oversized, and then just roughly trying to get where the top meets the side, because some of that is underneath the spoiler, like so. So rip away, discard that piece. Same again on the other side here. Can't quite see them bottom dots because there's a plastic trim that is blocking my light. I'm just going to join the cuts together around here. Rip away. Turn my light off so that the battery doesn't die so quick. And I'm ready to begin. Flatten out my edge there, so we can lock it down perfectly. Locking it down through the middle and down one side, making sure we have no side fingers. making sure that the material at the top is also flat. Coming along to the other side here, locking down the side fingers, locking down the side fingers, making sure that the edge of the film underneath that spoiler is nice and flat. And away we go. Now this heat shrink is just the same at most, except I'm not going to try and heat the very, very last part of that window film, because if I do, chances are I'm going to burn the spoiler. So, start in the middle, work it out. I like to split up my fingers into smaller fingers, making sure they're nice and vertical, so they follow the grain of the material. And obviously, like I would have said before, hopefully you've seen it already on other videos, when the heat shrink material has to go down the factory edge, which is the direction of the grain, which is the only direction this material can be shrunk in. Working along, splitting up these fingers into smaller vertical fingers, hitting just a little bit at a time, rubbing it flat. Once the film makes a shriveled shape, that's the reaction of the film shrinking down. That shows you that that part is done. We do not need to go over these squiggly parts, because we're not actually applying it yet. So how it looks now isn't necessarily how it's going to look at all when we squeeze it out on glass. Just getting it nice and flat and free from fingers. That bottom is done. Now the top, I'm only going to work about an inch of this top, or the bottom part of the fingers. I'm not going to go anywhere near that spoiler. And that is all I can do with that spoiler in the way. I'm now going to lift up this wiper blade again, so I can free up my material, get it out, put it back down again now, and I can pull my material down. Now, I'm going to finish off my shrink with being able to have access to the top edge of this window film. But before I do, I'm going to have to lock it back down. Lock it back down to where the finger stops being shrunk. Lock it down through the centre here, and then locking down that side. And of course, I still have fingers there to finish shrinking, so let's do it now. Start in the centre, working my way, getting rid of them last inch of fingers, making sure that the material is flat. Sometimes, because this tint is now in a different position on the glass, it won't quite lie flat in the corners, so I'm just going to frame it down with my hand there as I finish the heat shrink. Now, that is shrunk at the top. I can't now lay that part of the film, because when we heat shrink it, it does slightly burn the edge and curl it, even if we can't see and it looks like it's fine. It's not, which is why we have to leave extra at the bottom, so we can trim that little bit off the top, put it back into position, and then cut the bottom without it being short. So, starting exactly where I am just going to take 2mm off that top edge. Nice and neat, as this is the final cut, taking 2mm off that top edge. And there it is, that piece there. I say 2, more looks more like 5. I'm now going to pick it up. Because I've finished heat shrinking it, I no longer need that dry shrink. So to be able to position it in the right place, I'm going to spray it all up so we can slip and slide it and get that top in the right position. Looks like so. I'm going to pick it up, slide it up until the gaps of light are closed. Have a look inside and make sure I definitely have no gaps of light in here. And it looks like I'm okay. Maybe the middle maybe slightly higher. I think that's about right. Lift up that wiper. I might need to come to the right a bit more. But when I turn on the light, we will see for certain. The gap of light at the top is closed, so we know we've now got enough coverage at the top. but I'm too high. I'm short at the bottom. Let's try again. Slid it down. Now it's in the right position, but it does need to come this way. Still covered there, still covered there, still covered there. Probably short at the bottom again. Oh, just a tad. There we go. Right, now I have full coverage of top, bottom and sides. So I'm going to lock it down, because that is the position I'm happy with. It doesn't need to be a full H lockdown again, because we're not going to shrink it again. We've already done that part. I just want it to stop moving whilst I cut the next piece. I'm just going to go change my blade. Like so. And now I'm ready for the final cut and the installation. Let's go. Start at the bottom for me, so I can see it. Just going to cut off that excess. And because I know this glass, I'm going to make it nice and tight to these dots, if I can see them. Pretty much in the right place on that side there. It's my error, I'm just not going to trim off, but we're not sure. I'm going to trim off the excess on the side here, keep it nice and tight. And off it comes. Other side also. Trying to get as much of the shape at the top as we can. Nice and tight to the edge. And I can't quite see that bottom there, because like I said earlier, the plastic trim is hiding. It's shielding the light. So I'm going to put this back in again. Maybe I can rest my light on this to get a higher light point. Hopefully that will be good enough. And it is. I can finish this cut. See what I'm doing now. Now this side. Thing I need to do in terms of trim is, well, just before that actually, I'm just going to make sure that I definitely is following the shape where the sides meet the top here, and I can't get my hand underneath there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinprick the right position, a bit like a dot to dot I used to do with a kid. So I'm going to go there, and there, and there, and there. Same again on the other side. So we make sure that we are definitely cutting it to the right shape. There, and there, and there, and there. Brilliant. With that, pick up the film. And now all we have to do is just finish that with them top corner cuts. And I don't know if you can see that. That there, you see that little piece at the top? That's the part left that I'm trying to cut here. So, get my knife in. Just going to finish that cut, dot to dot, and let that corner blend in with the top, which blends in with the sides. Now this one, it seems like I've got too much here. Looks like here, I only have to trim a little bit, but this bit I've got to trim quite a lot, and I'm not quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold this window tint in half, and I'm going to see where my good side meets the bad side, and I'm going to see what else needs to be trimmed there. And I think it's going to look something like this, just making the window look symmetrical, unless of course it isn't a symmetrical window. And Now that is my finished template. Say that, maybe just neaten up that top a bit, because you can see the edge of the film when you open up the tailgate. Just finishing it off. Neaten it up just very slightly. And stop. Okay, I'm going to lock that down ever so slightly. Now I'm ready to put it on. So, open it up. Turn that light off. Take this parcel shelf upside down so the drips don't go on the top side. And now, one final pre-wipe installation, just to make sure that any little bits of lint, any sort of tiny little dust fibres that have just been floating around inside this car, that have landed on the glass since we've cleaned it, are now knocked off. And to make sure 100%, a tiny little blow, and on we go. Spray up the whole window tint there, the liner, sorry, get it going, and then spray as you peel. Never have a dry piece of window film with dry glue exposed, because it's very static and it will draw the dust to it. So just peel it, spray as you go, just like so. Now we're ready to go. I'm going to open up this tailgate halfway. Grab the bottom, lift it up, walk away, give the tailgate a quick shunt, and now I'm ready to install. I'm going to get it pretty much in the right place to the left hand side, but not quite high enough just yet, because I'm going to need to shimmy, create a pocket here in the middle so I don't touch the pillars as I slide in the right hand side. Now I can slide back and flatten this center out and start to slide it up to its right position. Like so. Flopping down the top, hoping that we have done a good enough job to make it nice and neat and full coverage, as the spoiler was right in our way. And we have got exactly that. And that is perfect. 3 squeegees and we're done. Squeegee number 1. On we go. Nice and light, just trying to get the thing flat. Making sure that we definitely get up the top there. When I teach training courses, it's very, very common for people to miss the water in that very, very top part where the plastic covers it. Squeegee number 1, which means the film is now flat. Squeegee number 2, now we're starting to dig in. Bit of lubricant. Starting to center at the top. Making sure that squeegee blade bends, overlapping squeegees, so that no part is missed. Other side now, back to the top. Overlapping squeegees, center out, making that blade bend as we go. Squeegee number 3, last one, hard as we can. Trying to pop this window out of the car, but obviously not literally. Pushing, nice and hard, center out, making sure there is 100% no moisture left. And I haven't done the edges yet, just as far as I can with the squeegee blade first. Lastly, now I'm happy with that, I'm going to get my conqueror, my time to trim tool, and I'm going to work center out, making sure that all that water from the last part and then final edges is gone. and that looks good enough to me. I'm going to get my sponge because we have lots of drips here on the plastic trims. So I'm going to wipe them all wet again. So when it dries nice and even. And then finally, with the same bit of tissue I just used, put a light little spray on it and just wipe off any squeegee marks that you've got on that tint. The final thing we're going to do now is we're going to put it down and we're going to examine it. Now I'm not going to teach you, especially not in this video, how to examine your own work, but obviously what I'm doing here is drying up the window on the outside and making sure that there is nothing that I need to correct. i.e., are there any contaminants that I might want to flatten down? Are there any side fingers that I might want to heat up and press down on the inside? Is there anything at the moment which I can see, which I can repair now? Another bit of tissue to make it so it's nice and dry so I can see through that water. And it looks like the answer is no. No, I don't need to do anything to this window. This window looks pretty nice at this moment. There we go, that is all done. My name is Michael Brand from Tinternet. That's how to do a back window with a spoiler. Have a lovely day.